Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
The brother Roland Martin.
What's
Welcome.
What's happening?
How you feeling?
New digs.
Yeah, man.
Praise the Lord.
That's what praises do.
Yes, indeed. Centrally located.
That's right.
So it makes it a lot easier to hit all the spots at one time versus way down there, coming up, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So,
How are you?
I'm all good, man. It's been crazy busy. Things are going well. We had a great 2022 with Black Star Network, and so we are moving with 2023. Launched our 24-hour streaming channel, and my goal for us by the end of the year was to be on 5 platforms. We probably will hit that by the end of April.
That's dope.
When people see that hashtag Roland Martin Unfiltered or Black Star Network, what does that mean?
Well, Roland Martin Unfiltered is the show. So when I launched September 2018, that was the first show that I launched. And so everybody told me, look, this is not going to work. I mean, you should try to go work. Try to go get a job back at CNN, a good job at MSNBC. And I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in having a 32-year-old white producer tell me what I can and cannot cover. And I also saw, in terms of exactly where we were going, just like when I was at the Chicago Defender, when I launched the first Black News audio podcast, then launched the video podcast in 2005, 2006. And they told me then it was crazy as well. I'm like, okay, I'm just letting y'all know this is about to happen. And so we had to do proof of concept. So Roland Martin Unfiltered, we're now 4 years in, building that up. And then last year when I launched the network, I knew I wanted other shows as well because I wanted to be more than just one show. So the show basically is the axis. It's the same thing, or tentpole. Same thing happens in you look at cable television. So you look at any cable network. There's always a show that's a tentpole where the other shows will launch off of
Absolutely.
it. That's how cable networks actually build. And so we did the exact same thing. So we've now got 4 other shows: Wealthy You from Deborah Owens, Balanced Living with Jackie Hood Martin. We've got The Pivot with Stephanie Humphrey. We got Greg Carr show, The Black Table, and then another daily show for Raji Muhammad. We got 3 shows we're developing as well. So things are going well. The biggest thing is still dealing with the ad agencies when it comes to supporting Black-owned media. Because you got some folks who say, oh, we don't want to buy news. It's like, oh, brand safety. And I'm like, yeah, but I see your ads on Fox News. I see them on MSNBC. I see them on CNN where there's opinion. So please tell me again where this brand safety stuff comes in. And so that's why our audience who supports us, it's been crazy. I mean, our audience, the fans have literally given about $2 million in the last 4 years. And so that's how we've been able to really sustain and build to sort of do the things necessary because, Black-owned media is so important, but specifically news. There's a ton of gossip. There's a ton of entertainment. There's a ton of, for the culture. But the question is, what are you being informed about? And what I hate is when people say, oh, man, I wish we knew. Well, there are those of us out here trying to tell you. But the question is, what are you watching? What are you listening? And look, March 16th is the anniversary, the 196th anniversary of the launch of the first Black newspaper, Freedom's Journal. And it was March 16th, 1827. And there's a quote in the 3rd paragraph. We have a mural in my office. This has it on there. It says, "We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us." And that's really has been the mantra of the Black press. And that's why that matters because I fear us, and I've said this on this show numerous times before, I fear the future where we're asking somebody else to tell our story. That is the scariest thing in the world to me.
I feel like that's all people doing. Even now, like when you see people pitching shows to different producers and production companies in Hollywood, I feel like that's all we ever do.
Right, and that's because we have been conditioned to seek permission as opposed to grant permission ourselves. So when you look at historically, when you look at Robert Abbott with the Chicago Defender, when you look at John H. Johnson with Ebony and Jet, Negro Digest, so Black-owned media meant we made those decisions. When you look at BET, Bob Johnson owning BET, when the Million Man March happened, his salespeople became him and like, Bob, what are we doing? If you cover the Million Man March and we go no ads, we're going to lose money. He said, then today we're going to lose money. So Bob Johnson only can make that decision because Bob Johnson owned BET.
That's right.
And the reason we've been having this fight, even with Black-owned media, is because if you read Brett Pulley's book, which is an amazing book called The $1 Billion Bet, the unauthorized biography of Bob Johnson and BET, when Viacom purchased BET, Sumner Redstone and Mel Karmazin, that Brett Pulley lays out in his book, saw that BET was getting $1,500 for a 30-second ad that MTV was getting $8,000 for. Now think about that. So, and Mel goes, BET was discounting itself. No, they weren't discounting themselves. The agencies were not valuing black people.
That's right.
Now, if you just do the math, BET gets sold for $2.3 billion plus the assumption of debt, so really about $3 billion. If BET had been getting its fair value from the beginning, that means that when BET was sold, it should have been sold for 10 to 12 billion. Now, remember, Bob and Sheila Johnson, reaped the billions from it, which meant that if they got their fair value, they could have actually sold 30% of BET for the same $3 billion and still owned it.
Yeah.
So now you see what happens when we get shortchanged in the dollars and how it impacts black ownership. So it even happens now. I mean, I'll be in conversations with advertisers, and I know they're paying someone over here $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, and then it'll be, hey, let's do this pilot thing for $20,000, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And they'll look at me. Did he just turn down $20,000? Yes, I did. It happens on the political campaigns as well. Happened last campaign. I got a phone call and they said, hey, we got $25,000 for this campaign, $25,000 for this campaign. We want this. And I was like, oh, y'all think y'all gonna get all that for $50,000? And I literally sent the text back. I said, fuck that. I said, I will keep my black ass at home. Good luck with your campaign. So the whole point is, at some point, from an ownership standpoint, you have to demand what your value is. And because if you take that lower amount, that now becomes your rate. And you're always fighting against that lower number. And that's the hardest thing, because they're used to us taking the crumb and thinking it's a meal. And that's one of the reasons why, if you look at black businesses across the board, pre-COVID, there were 2.6 million black-owned businesses. 2.5 million had one employee, and we're doing an average revenue of $54,000. 95% of all black-owned businesses make less than $5 million in revenue. So we really don't have a robust black-owned business sector. It's because they're essentially sole proprietors. Those are not businesses. And that's one of the reasons why we as African Americans are in the condition that we are in, because when you look at that, when you look at the lack of contracts, when you look at the fact that on the federal government, that's why Trump's platinum plan was a joke. He's going to do $500 billion for black-owned businesses. The federal government only does $560 billion in contracts. Of that number, we get 1.67%. You look on the advertising industry, $322 billion is spent. We get 0.5 to 1%. So you look at most sectors, we literally are getting 1, maybe 2%. That's one of the reasons why our community looks the way it looks, because our black businesses simply have no ability to be able to grow from a capacity standpoint. And so that's why you have to teach our people that, and constantly driving the information so they realize, oh, so that's what's going on. Yes.
How do we change that, though? Because like when you turn it down, I'm sure there's somebody else out there that be like, I'm going to take that money.
Right. And that's also part of the deal. So we have to understand, when you're operating as a collective, is that if you take that crumb, you're going to keep getting that crumb. So we have to train folks to understand that, no, you have to stand for it. No, let's get the 100 or the 500,000, or let's take down the million or the several $1 million. So that's one that has to happen, and not get played by isolating us. That's one. Two, information also comes in, because too many people are literally walking into meetings and they don't have the information on how to do battle. Three, we've got to have our institutions also begin to properly leverage them. So what I mean by that, if you have corporations that are doing business with the National Urban League, the NAACP, National Action Network, Rainbow Push Coalition, and others, those institutions have to say, all right, a donation to us is great, but it's marginal. Okay? So Wells Fargo was the presenting sponsor of the NAACP Image Awards. Okay, that's fine, that's great. But the question is, how much money did black people lose during the home foreclosure crisis as a result of the business practices of Wells Fargo? I guarantee you it's far more what the donation was. And so I believe our institution we need to have race indexes, meaning not just who are your black folks on the board of directors, but what are the contracts that you're providing? And I don't mean just media contracts. I mean transportation. I mean catering, event planning, audio visual. We can who are your lawyers, your accounting firms, your bond deals, looking at the entire ecosystem. So if I see $1 million donation to a black civil rights group, but we should be getting $500 million in contracts, which one actually benefits us? I'm going to use Pepsi as an example. We've been talking to PepsiCo, no luck whatsoever, but I'm going to just walk you through numbers. So PepsiCo Foundation has a deal with the National Urban League to help black-owned restaurants. It's a 5-year, $10 million initiative. Totally agree with it, support it 100%. I've told Mark Morial that. PepsiCo they've been running ads. They want to drive $100 million in receipts to black-owned restaurants over 5 years. Great idea. Problem is they can't track it. One of the black people who are on the board told me that. We can't track that. Okay, but that's fine. I support that.
I wonder why you can't keep a paper trail of the money.
Well, because first of all, you don't know if you walk into a black-owned restaurant because you saw the PepsiCo ad, unless you got a code that says, I saw this.
Right.
How we know you walking in because you saw the ad?
Got you.
You can't measure it. But okay, I support the commercials. Let's say PepsiCo spends $3 billion a year on marketing. Let's say 5% of PepsiCo's budget goes to black-owned media. That's $150 million a year. In 5 years, that's $750 million. Now let's do a comparison. 5 years, $10 million to the Urban League, stand up black-owned restaurants, $100 million in receipts to black-owned restaurants, $750 million to black-owned media. Which of the three has a material impact on Black America? The $750 million. Now, I'd say just 5%. Now, imagine if that 5% is PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, General Motors, Ford, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and we start going on and on and on. Now, all of a sudden, we're now in the billions conversation. And the idea has to be, and it goes not just to Urban One, Black Enterprise, Essence, Revolt, Blavity, but you expand the black-owned media space. So now all of a sudden, because I always say, we all can eat. Now all of a sudden, you're changing the game. Now all of a sudden, it's not just that individual, the company, it's the people who they work for. Now you can grow. Now you can build. Now you can hire more people. That now matriculates down. Now you're impacting families. Now who you working for? It's an entire ecosystem. And so now take that same thing, now go to transportation, go to engineering, go to legal, go to every single field. So what we need our organizations thinking about scale and how they leverage their scale. I need fraternities and sororities going, how are we putting pressure on companies to change the numbers when it comes to contracts? We have the ability, we have the capacity, we have the knowledge of all of that, but we're all lacking the ability to put the pressure on the system to say, no, you're not going to keep playing the game of the 0.5 to 1%. That's one of the reasons why we as a community stay broke. And when that happens, guess what? We can start buying our own tables. We're not sitting here hype for somebody buying a table at one of our events. We can afford to buy our own tables. We'll now have greater capacity to fund our own HBCUs and numerous other things. When you're frozen, if you're having a conversation in America and you're not talking about money, you ain't having an American conversation.
That's a fact.
Look, white America loves us discussing everything else but the money. What did Coretta Scott King said? They killed my Martin when he started talking about the money.
So what's the balance? Because then you'll have people who are anti-capitalism, but we live in a capitalist country. So what's the balance?
First of all, you can be anti-capitalist all you want to. John Hope Bryant says this here. He said you need to make money like a capitalist to give it away like a socialist.
That's right.
I mean, and so again, this is the system that we are in. What we have to be willing to say, how are we engaging this very system to ensure that there's actual equity, which means how do we leverage our influence? If you ask most black folks what your top 5 issues, money is not going to be number one. We're going to talk about education. We're going to say mass incarceration. We're going to say criminal justice reform. We're going to say housing. We'll say environmental justice.
It depends where you go, though. You go to the hood, money number one, pretty much.
But even that conversation is not understanding how money properly works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, every issue I just named, money is at the root of that.
Mm-hmm.
Money's at the root of every single one of those very issues. And so the question is, how do we now think differently about money? How do we now look at, I just look at decisions that we make in terms of as individuals, how we spend money, because also the conversations that we actually have, the conversations that we're actually engaged in. Do we have discussions about annuities? Nope. Do we talk about stocks and bonds? Nope. We're talking about, hey, how can I pay my cell phone bill, my rent? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if we understand what we're being frozen out of, then we begin to see how the conversation changes. When you have an African American who begins to make $50,000 a year, all of a sudden everybody in the family, oh, they rich. No, they're not. No, they're not. And so then what happens is that person is funding all kind of stuff in the family, and then what ends up happening? They don't have any money when they're 50, 55 because they've literally given away probably $250,000 when the money could have been saved and invested. So if we begin to say, well, wait a minute, if I can make sure I can raise the academic standards of all my nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters and cousins, now all of a sudden we're not in those same positions.
That's right.
We have to be thinking that way and just having a different conversation about money and not just, oh, we need to be financially literate. No. We need to be looking at how we spend money, how we put pressure on folks. I would encourage everybody, go listen to that speech Dr. King gave at Mason Temple on April 3rd, 1968. We always play the mountaintop part. It's a 43-minute, 16-second speech. And in that speech, he said we must redistribute the pain. He said the garbage workers can't be the only ones having the pain. He talked about boycotting companies. He talked about not spending money with people who don't spend money on us. He's talking about a return on investment. He's literally laying out economic blueprint. But he said something else in that speech was important. He says, Black people personally or individually are poor. He said, yet collectively represent one of the largest economies in the world. That's also part of the deal. How do we move as a collective to put pressure on a system to get something in return? That is what I am arguing. And that could literally change the face of business in 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. See, I'm not talking about 30, 40, 50. I'm talking about this literally could happen right now if we're willing to leverage our group power to change what's happening for us economically.
I was going to ask, so, we're talking all the economics, right? And they're talking inflation fell, and now they're talking about the banking crisis. What are your thoughts on the banking crisis and Silicon Valley and the president stepping in saying we're going to help, but it's not going to cost taxpayers money? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, remember, when you talk about that particular bank there, what happened there? That was an abject failure on their leadership because they were not properly prepared for the Fed's interest rate raises. That was one. Mm-hmm. Two, I'm laughing to death at all of these white conservatives who are yelling, oh, they were so concerned about being woke, as if a group of white men ain't never broke banks before. Mm-hmm. Let's just be real, okay? But what you have is the financial industry is so crazy because if there's just a sliver of a fear.
Everybody pull their money.
Pull their money. That's whether it's private equity. That always happens. So it's like, oh, let me hold on to cash. That's the whole deal. So that sector is really dependent upon confidence. Everything is going to be fine. That's what happened there. They just got all spooked. Well, that was a crisis of leadership. Okay. And secondly, it was also a weakening of the regulations. Mm-hmm. Barney Frank needs to be answering to this because you had the Dodd-Frank bill. He actually lobbied once he left Congress and joined a bank, the bank that he actually joined. They were the ones that went under, Signature Bank in New York. They weakened the laws. Conservatives and Republicans love yelling deregulation. No, there's a reason regulation is important to prevent that from happening. Mm-hmm. So what do? They weakened the stress test of regional or smaller banks. What was this? This was the 16th largest bank, but what happened? The regional banks all of a sudden started freaking out because people were like, oh my God, they could all go under. And so this is why regulation matters. Now, that's when you get into the Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative ideology. But here's the whole deal. If you're listening to my voice right now, and if your children or nieces or nephews are playing, you probably want them playing on a playground
That's regulated.
that doesn't have lead paint all on the different items there. That's regulation.
That's right.
Okay, I would like to drink water that's clean.
Mm-hmm.
Regulation matters. But when you have two parties and one absolutely believes deregulate everything as if regulation is the greatest problem in the world, that's crazy. But then when catastrophe happens, oh my God, where are the federal regulators? You weaken the laws. So what are you doing? It happens all the time. The thing I always say about this country, we wait for shit to blow up and then go, you know what, Charlamagne, we might want to fix that. Well, fool, had y'all fixed it, but see, we don't like to be proactive. We literally like to wait for something to blow up, then go, yeah, we might want to fix that bridge now that 12 people were killed.
That's what's happening with all this derailing, all the trains derailing.
Right, same thing.
Yeah.
You had one member of Congress, this fool, Mike Collins out of Georgia. He goes on the floor of the House and goes, it's because of DEI and wokeness that the derail happened. No, fool. It's because the Trump administration rolled back the laws that Obama folks put in place to improve the brake system. That's what I'm saying.
But you see how clear you said that? The problem I have with Democrats is they don't even know how to message that. They'll take the blame for it, let the Republicans paint them as the bad guys, and never be able to say, no, it wasn't us. This happened. Y'all.
Well, because Democrats talk in terms of a thesis. Republicans talk in terms of bumper stickers. It is. I mean, look, the viral video of the sister who was on my show. We were talking about who was pro-life, and I'm like, you ain't pro-life. I'm like, you pro. I said, you anti-abortion, and I said, because if you were pro-life, I said, why Republicans vote against Medicaid expansion? We're on this whole list of things down, and just nailed it. I said, no. I said, you can't tell me you are pro-life, but you do nothing about prenatal care, nothing about the rise in black women who are dying in childbirth, none of those different things. Folks are like, man, that was succinct. I'm like, yeah, because it ain't that hard. But when you try to give a 20-minute answer to the problem, they're gone. Republicans are going to give you that bumper sticker.
That's right.
So you do have to actually break it down. Joe Madison always says you got to put it where the ghost can get it. I mean, you got to make it plain for folk to understand where they go. That makes sense. But there's an art to messaging. And yeah, Democrats typically are absolutely horrible at messaging and explaining to folk why certain things happen. So like when Newsweek did that article saying Biden cut $35 billion from HBCUs. That was a lie if you actually read, but most folk don't read.
Right.
I spend multiple shows walking people through the data saying, no, this is a lie. This is what he said. This was proposed. This is what got funded. Here's the whole truth. The people kind of like, oh, we didn't know all that. Yeah, because the places that you're watching, they're not going to break it down to you for you.
Right.
Because let's just be clear, MSNBC and CNN are not going to give you that level of detail specifically to HBCUs. It ain't going to happen, which is why you got to have black-owned media.
What would you say to people who said, of course the Silicon Valley Bank is getting the bailout, but, if you ask for stuff for like student loan forgiveness or, universal health care or social services, housing, education.
Or HBCU support.
They don't never have money for that, but they always have money for the bailout banks and the fund wars. What would you say to those people?
One, they're actually mostly incorrect if you break those things apart. First of all, you look at the student loan debt forgiveness. That right now is awaiting the Supreme Court decision. So you'll have those oral arguments. So the Biden administration actually said, let's forgive student loan debt. Now they got sued. Now it goes to Supreme Court. That's Supreme Court. The three branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. Bottom line is that's why it's in the Supreme Court. So that happens there. When you talk about HBCUs, the level of funding over the last 4 years has been the most they've gotten ever. We broke down, you're talking about almost $8 billion. And then if you go inside of those numbers, and Congressman Bobby Scott was on the Education Committee, Congressman Jim Clyburn, Congressman Alma Adams. Look, the thing was so significant with those numbers that most of those HBCUs, especially public HBCUs, got 4 times as much money from the federal government than they got from the states, and they're supposed to be state funded.
Yes, the states owe these HBCUs a lot of money.
No, I'm just talking about just the annual amount of money they were given. You take all of those federal programs, CARES Act, American Rescue Plan, all of those. I mean, the numbers don't lie in terms of, I'm talking about you going from Alabama A&M to Florida A&M to North Carolina A&T, top to bottom, in many cases, 4 times as much money. I walked through the whole spreadsheet on my show, and folk were like, hold up, the state gave Florida A&M that much, and they got that much from the federal government? Absolutely. And so your money there. Now, you're absolutely right. They are right in terms of how Congress is excellent at finding money for largely white farmers, $25 billion when Trump was president. But then, no, we can't afford that particular program. That's why I keep walking people through why voting matters. See, folks go, if I don't get this, I ain't voting. Well, if you don't vote, you ain't gonna get this. And so you cannot change policy, but not change the policy makers. Mm-hmm. And so the other piece is other folk have lobbyists. They are there advocating, fighting for those things. They literally are putting pressure on the system to get those things. Look, there's only one federal agency that shares along with the White House. Treasury. Mm-hmm. White House power, Treasury money. Power, money, money, power. Okay? You always follow the money. Okay? It ain't helping Human Services or HUD that's sharing along with the White House. It's Treasury. That's where the money is. Okay? So what we have to be saying is, okay, they ain't gonna let the banks fail. Let's just be fundamentally
clear. And that's
not
a party thing, by the way.
No, that ain't a party thing. That's an American thing.
That's why when I asked you, I wasn't asking just based on this administration, just in general.
That's what I'm saying. That ain't happening. But what has to happen is we've got to have folk be willing to say something. Why is Reverend William Barber and the Poor People's Campaign so important? Because the largest group of people who don't vote are poor people. Mm-hmm. These are working class people. These are people who are poor. People who are busting their butt every single day. If 20% of broke folk in America, if the people who don't vote, if 20% of that group votes, they can overturn nearly every election. You look at Mississippi. When Mike Espy ran the first time against Sidney Highsmith 2018, or was it 16? It was 18. When he first ran against her, he lost by 65,000 votes. There were more than 100,000 black people who were eligible who did not vote. Mm. He could have been United States Senator. But you look at the broke white people in Mississippi who didn't vote. Same thing. You go Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas. Broke is broke. But you've got many folks who are just so, I got no power, I got no part of this system. If they totally check out. A study said 75% of young voters in Texas did not vote in 2020. 70%, 75%. I'm sorry, in 2022, when Beto was running. Like, what? But then now you're wondering they taking polling locations off of college campuses. Now you're wondering the changes they're making when it comes to DEI and colleges and universities. Now you're asking about funding. See, again, the folk who show up, they are going to cater to. How is Texas, my native state, 60% minority? Total population of Texas. Yet 60% of those who vote are white. You got to follow the numbers. And so we have to, again, educate people on how do we make changes to this system. If the federal government this year, if Congress gave the Pentagon, it was 40 or 50 billion more than what the Biden administration was even asking for. I'm like, oh, now we can always find money for the Pentagon. But you're right. Oh, but we can't find money for housing. We can't find money for this. It's called priorities. And so you've got to put pressure on the system to change it. And I just keep telling people, you can't check out. You can't check out. You've got to be. That's why organizations matter. That's why showing up matters. And yes, I know people are busy. People say, man, I ain't got no time for any of that. But guess what? There's somebody out there making the time, and the squeaky wheel gets the most grease, and that's what's happening all too often.
Do you believe we're going to go to war? You think war is going to inevitable?
What type of war?
World War III.
No.
You don't think that's going to happen? No, China, Russia, you don't think?
No. That's what I'm saying. When you say war, the question is, what type of war?
I was like, what? Who's fighting?
Right. I was like,
just asking.
No. First of all, again, You're not gonna have a world war. You're not gonna have World War III because you ain't messing up the money. Okay, first of all, you could talk about China. You could talk to people. Oh, China's our biggest threat. First of all, China's got some significant internal problems. Whoever came up with the idea of the one-child solution 30 plus years ago, right now, they probably have already shot and killed them. Why?
Man.
Because here's why. Look, because they were like, oh my God. I never forget when watching 60 Minutes and I saw their report about the one-child solution where they literally said in families you can only have one kid. The reason that was dumb is because eventually people are going to pass away. So what is China's problem right now? They don't have enough people to work in the manufacturing facilities. So they have all kind of different problems there right now because they ain't got enough people. Yes, China doesn't have enough people because you limited people to one child. Now they're like, yo, can y'all have like 5 or 6 kids? Because again, numbers are numbers. It's like I have these battles with people when we talk about immigration. They talk about, how you have to, you got conservatives, Tucker Carlson yelling the Great Replacement Theory. You're not going to be here forever. Mm-hmm. You literally have to have a country. So the question is, who works jobs? Okay. Why have you had battles in Europe for the last 15 years because of African immigration? It's because Germans, Italians, the French, and other European nations, they stopped having children. In order for your countries to continue, you need people. Mm-hmm. Where do you get them from? Either you birth them or they immigrate. One or two things are going to happen, or you're going to lose people. When you lose people, you lose industries. You lose industries, you lose gross domestic product. You lose GDP, you lose money. And guess what happens? You used to be a power, now you're not. Mm-hmm. So those things are going to happen. So all this talk about how China's our biggest threat, no. China has some significant problems because they've got people problems and where their workers are going to be 20 years from now. If they haven't been birthing them in the last, think about it. If one-child policy, that means that a kid that was born 30 years ago today would be 30. Be 50 in 20 years. Well, if those kids only have one kid, you're not going to have 2 generations of only one child. You literally are not going to have a population to service your entire country. They've got some internal battles, and that's a huge issue right there, that one-child solution. It backfired on them.
I like the geopolitical talk. I want to get back to what you said about voting here, right? Like, I wonder if this system could ever really change because Dems really can't cater to their base. They still have to cater to that center right white voter. You know what I mean?
Well, let's keep in mind the last election, 71% of the people who voted were white.
Mm-hmm. Always.
That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But again though, the issue is the Dems problem is here. First of all, Republicans, you either right or far right. Mm-hmm. There ain't no center. You ain't the liberal Republican no longer exists. Okay. The problem with Democrats is you've got moderate Democrats, center-right Democrats, you've got liberal Democrats,
far-right Democrats,
progressive Democrats, far-left Democrats. So the Democrat tent is so large. What
would you call Manchin and Sinema?
Huh?
What would you call Manchin and Sinema?
Easy. I would call Manchin and Sinema center-right.
You think they center?
Absolutely. No. I said center-right. Because no. Pull the numbers.
Okay.
Pull the numbers. What's their percentage of voting with President Biden?
Okay. All right.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
See, that's why somebody goes, so and so is a moderate Republican. Oh, because they voted 91% with Trump, mm-hmm. not 98%. Mm-hmm. No. They still are who they are. So the reality is they are center right. That's who they are. Because also where they're from. Sinema, I think she's trash. Manchin literally is the only Democrat left standing in the state. I mean, the guy who was the governor, the billionaire. Remember, he ran as a Democrat, was elected. Trump becomes president. He becomes Republican. Mm-hmm. Okay, that is which is West Virginia is a perfect example of white folks voting against their own interests. It is one of the most illiterate states in the union. It's one of the brokest states in the union. When LBJ launched his war on poverty, he actually launched it in West Virginia, and they vote hardcore Republican. I'm going, so let's see here. They're anti-union, but you support union. But your education system, your health system, your environment, all those different things, but you're actually voting for the very people who voted against the things that you care about. Okay, gotcha.
Well, you probably buy into the whole white erasure thing that's happening.
Yeah, but also if you are a Democrat, you've got to be willing to go into those places. Like, for instance, when President Obama was in the White House, I said to him and his folks, I said, why y'all keep going to suburban Ohio, Virginia, touting them the Affordable Care Plan? I said, this is what y'all should do. Go find the brokest, sickest, reddest, whitest parts of America and go, I passed the Affordable Care Act for y'all. Because y'all are the brokest, the sickest, the reddest, and the whitest. These are your health numbers when it comes to diabetes, when it comes to cancer, when it comes to all these different things. I'm like, go there and say it. I said, you have to be willing to take on folks just where they are. And they go, hold up, we the brokest and the sickest? Because see, most people don't actually think they broke, but they broke. Most folk don't believe their education system really, really sucks unless somebody actually explains it. So you have to be willing to do that. Too often Democrats are not willing to go there. I told Senator Bernie Sanders when he kept going on and on about identity politics, I'm telling you, I hit one of his people. I said, I said, Bernie keeps doing this. I said, I'm going to lay his ass out. And so he sets up a meeting with me and Senator Sanders. And so I go to his office. I tell him point blank. I said, listen, you keep hitting identity politics. I said, do you understand the game that you're playing? You're playing right into the right's hands. I said, I'm telling you right now. I said, you keep it up, I'm gonna tag your ass. Told him straight up. I said, because
security?
Huh?
Security?
Well, I would love for us to, can you continue talking about this? And I was like, yeah, because I'm like, dude, I said, you need to understand. What you're doing is you're playing right into white grievance. I mean, that's literally what my book is about, white fear. That's what you're playing into. First of all politics is identity politics. All of it. What's a NASCAR dad?
A what?
What's a NASCAR dad? I see you got this NASCAR car. What is a NASCAR dad?
I mean, if I had to describe him, a white man.
That takes their kids.
A white conservative man in the South.
Yeah.
That's a NASCAR dad.
Absolutely.
That's identity politics.
Yeah.
What's a soccer mom?
A white woman from probably the Midwest, you know what I mean, Middle America,
or anywhere. It's a white woman in the suburbs who's conservative.
That's
It
right.
ain't. Now it's a bunch of black women who are soccer moms, but they ain't talking about them.
Yeah, that's not what comes to mind.
No, that's identity politics.
Yeah.
Everything in politics is completely broken down by identity. How can I grab this group, this group, this group? That's all politics. But they only want to assign identity politics if it's black or Latino or women, and it's BS. It's all identity politics, and so that was one of the things that we went at each other on that. But that's really, in terms of what this thing looks like. But going back to your point about in terms of voting, it's people who don't. The problem for us is we're not voting on numbers. Numbers don't lie. If black people, let's just say white voters stay where they are, even the total number is 71% electorate. If black voters in most places vote 65, 70, 75% of our numbers, we can sweep elections. Because if you're in an area, in a state, 500,000 registered and eligible black voters, 30% vote. Okay, that's 150. If 30% of them vote, that's 150. If 50% of them vote, that's an additional 100,000 votes. 50. I ain't got the 70. 50. Warnock B. Herschel Walker about 95,000 votes. If 30% of black people vote, it's 500,000 black people, 30% vote, that number is what it is.
So
we've been saying that for 10 years.
So now, what do you now deal with? You now have to, first of all, start very early to educate. You can't, see, this is what we do. We got to register. First of all, I can't get you to vote unless you're registered. I can't get you to register unless you're enlightened. I can't enlighten you unless you're educated. The problem is we stop educating and enlightening, and we spend all of our attention just trying to get somebody registered.
That's right.
Register because, no, if I don't see the value, I have to now explain to you why. People come to me all the time. Man, I hear you talking about voting. Why should I vote? I go, what's the one thing you care about? Man, what you mean? Well, you obviously care about something. What do you care about?
It's rooted in politics. Whatever it is.
whatever the issue is. And but see, I force them. No. What do you care about? Then they go,
money.
So then they throw it out. Okay,
school.
And so then when they unpack it, then I'm like, okay, let me explain to you how this federal race impacts the one thing you care about. Then they'll go, damn, I ain't never thought about it like that, because no one has walked them through. We don't have civics classes like we used to. We're not walking people through who they don't understand what city council does, county government does, what the DA does. Look, it was only in the last 5 to 8 years that people now understand the power of the district attorney. Why do you think all of a sudden we started electing progressive district attorneys? Because people were being educated and taught. That is what is desperately needed. And so that's one of the reasons why for my show, we literally use the show to walk folks through teaching, educating. I've had more people come up to me who say, bruh, man, I ain't know nothing about this stuff. But watching now, I understand it because we're taking the time to do it. You can't just say go register. If Democrats were smart, and I've said this to civil rights groups, I've said it to all Divine Nine, we should be starting right now on a massive national education plan for 2024. You cannot wait to June of 2024 or
Especially
September.
with the reordering of the presidential primary.
Yeah, you have to, because again, you need people to understand the long-term implications of what's about to happen. Do you realize right now in Florida, right now, they are considering a bill that could potentially eliminate all black fraternities and sororities from public universities.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Absolutely.
It passed out of the committee in the House. Already passed out. Now the Senate bill is totally different. That thing is being considered right now. When you look at what the attacks on DEI, now Florida did it. Now Texas is doing, North Carolina doing it, removing DEI from all of the job listings as well. Okay? Understand what their strategy is. Their strategy, which I lay out in my book, White Fear. Their strategy is a 50 to 100 year strategy. We're talking next year. No, they're talking the next 50 years. Right. So that means that if you have, how old is your daughter?
Which one? I got 4, but the oldest one is 21. The youngest one is 1.
Okay. That means they want to impact your youngest daughter when she's having her 50th.
Yeah, my youngest is 1. Yeah, absolutely.
I want you to think about that. They want to impact your daughter when she's having her 50th birthday. That's how they're operating. That's the agenda that they are executing. So I'm yelling from the rooftops, Black America, wake up to understand what they are trying to do. It is not the next 2 years or 4 years. They want to cement power and control for the next 50 years. So if we shift, yes, those numbers and go from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70, now all of a sudden, game totally changes, and they're going to look up and went, what the hell? They turned out at 70%? Yeah, because numbers don't lie. DeSantis would not be governor. If black people had voted at 65% of our numbers, DeSantis never becomes governor.
A question, with the Democratic Party approving the reordering of the 24 presidential primary, how do you see that empowering more black voters?
Well, first off, whenever the presidential election comes around, it was always Iowa, New Hampshire. Ain't no black people there. There are very few. I mean, I've spoken in Iowa. I won't say there's no black people there. I've spoken to the NAACP in Iowa. There are black people there, but the numbers are very small. So the reality is white interests are placed ahead of everything else. Now, all of a sudden, because African Americans dominate the Democratic Party in South Carolina, you are going to have to be talking about the things that we actually care about. So that is a change. But here's the problem. In the last election, there was a significant drop off of black turnout in South Carolina. Massive dropout. So what has to happen is black people in South Carolina are going to have to become far more engaged. Again, it's turnout.
But people got to, why people, you have a big audience with your network. They're engaged with you because of the words that are coming out of your mouth. Shouldn't more emphasis be on the actual Democrats to get people engaged? Why do we always do that to the voters? Like, oh, go out there and vote. Because no, shouldn't Democrats be doing things to energize people?
They should, but what I'm not going to do is wait on somebody else to save me if I can throw somebody a life vest.
But see, when you feel like when they don't save you, now you feel like you don't need them.
Yeah, but here's the deal,
So
though.
why go vote?
Here's the deal, though, because somebody gonna win. Hey, I mean, this is real simple. Again, when I'm educating, I love these people who go, Roland Martin trying to get black. He came for Democrats. I'm caving for black people. See, here's what I know. Somebody gonna win. Somebody gonna win. You can hate both of them. One of them are gonna win. Period. Now I have to decide. Okay, of the 2 people or the 3 people or the 4 or the 5, who do I want, or who can I potentially talk to or try to get something from? That's what I have to decide. I don't care who it is, which now means I got to now make a decision. All right. And I can say, man, I don't like my decision. Again, somebody is going to win. I now have to say, what are my interests? And then what are my interests now means who is likely going to, who can I get a meeting with? Who can I put pressure on? You know, what are the pressure points? If the reality is this here, if a Republican wins, I literally have no pressure points because they ain't talking to me anyway. The numbers just simply don't lie. But Democrat wins, I've got pressure points if I use them. See, the problem is we go, I voted, cool, I'm out, I'll see you later. No. I got to be in that person's face. I got to be right there.
That's true.
I got to be, and let them know I'm coming for you. Look, listen, man, when I did a special on the lack of black-owned advertising dollars, every agency called my salespeople. Is he going to mention us? Is he going to mention us? He going to mention us? And they're like, yeah, he mentioned everybody who didn't give him money. And they were all like freaking out. Why were they freaking out? Now, there are other black targeted and black-owned platforms bigger than me. But they were like, damn, he got a big voice. Because I use it. What do they fear? They fear me publicly naming them, publicly shaming them. That's what they fear. We have to be willing to use, again, our power.
But we can't publicly shame Democrats without getting called a Trump supporter or MAGA.
No.
You're trying to help Republicans win just by being critical.
No. There's a difference between there's the difference between offering a critique, being critical, and being reckless.
But Roland, you know, people mix up all three.
But no. Because they mix up all three.
No. People,
and they'll say you reckless.
People, they don't necessarily mix up all three. The question is, what are we actually saying? How are we saying it? And what information are we giving? If I'm walking through data and I'm having a fact-based critique of somebody, then you're going to have to argue with the facts. But when I'm just throwing, Democrats ain't done nothing. First of all, that's a lie.
Right.
Democrats ain't done jack for black people. That's a lie. Can more happen? Yes. Should more happen? Yes. What more do you want to happen? Then how do you actually get it? See, you got to unpack that. The problem is when people just throw stuff out, have nothing behind it, and then it's a reckless statement. That's what I mean by reckless. Now, if I'm sitting here saying, okay, this is what we want. So perfect example. Right now, White House ain't happy with me. Because
you're not getting to the Christmas party? You're not going to invite you to the Christmas party?
No. First of all, Christmas party crap don't mean nothing to me. Okay, I don't give a damn about the Christmas. First of all, I was at the Christmas party, but it don't mean nothing to me. Because the reality is, it's an invite. That's look.
It was just me and him there. That's all.
Right. Look, I never got invited to any of the birthday party stuff for the Obamas.
No, as much as you like to dance.
Oh no, never. Matter of fact, the last party they had. Black folks were at the party texting me, Roland, why ain't you here? I said, I ain't getting invited. Here's why. And I know exactly why.
Because you was critical of President Obama.
And because I also was offering critique to him directly. And I made it clear to him, to Valerie Jarrett, to everybody, didn't I tell y'all I was going to do this during the election? Now,
and why shouldn't you?
Was I reckless like Tavis and Dr. West? Yes. Now, I had Dr. West on my show, and I said it. I said, Doc, I said, Doc,
you say you were reckless?
No, I said they were. When Doc, I told Dr. West, I said, biggest mistake, Doc, is when you brought up the inauguration tickets. I said that was petty. I said it wasn't policy. It was petty.
But you just proved my point.
No,
If you wasn't reckless and you was just being critical
No.
with facts, they still ain't invited you to the Christmas party.
Here's the deal, though. But I ain't sweating the invite to the party because I'm still serving my audience.
That's right.
Okay, that's the deal. So, but what I'm saying is the problem is when your focus is to get to the Christmas party and you ain't saying nothing. So I ain't worried about the Christmas party. I don't care about that. I've said to the Biden White House, has President Biden sat down and done a one-on-one with black-owned media outlets? The answer is no.
Because it's going to be hard.
Should he? Well, and here's the deal. I said it. Now, when they had the State of the Union deal, normally when they have the luncheon, they sit down with the president. All the TV anchors are there. Well, I got invited 3 times by Trump, 4 times by Obama. So I was like, yo, is President Biden doing it? They said, yes. I said, where's my invite? Oh, black-owned media is going to be represented. I was like, well, who? I was like, I don't know anybody else in black-owned media who has more news every day than I do. I only know one person who has a black-owned and operated black news and information channel, me. I said, so who y'all talking to? So they had something that a couple of days later for black journalists and black media with senior administration officials, and then we did a drive-by in the Oval Office, took a photo. I said, no, that ain't a sit-down. I said, black-owned media deserves FaceTime sitting with the President of the United States and the Vice President asking questions on the record about the issues that matter to black America.
But then those would be tough questions. They don't want that.
No, but here's the deal, though. My job is still to ask for it and demand it. And I'm not tripping if folk in the White House salty about it, because here's what I do know. And this is what I mean by when you understand what your leverage point is. You're going to need us in 24. You're going to need. So my whole deal is I'm going to ask for stuff because, again, it's a return on investment. You know you need us. Black women are the highest Democratic voters. Black men are the second highest. 65% of people who follow me on YouTube are black men. So if you Biden Harris, you might want to come talk to me because you have a black male problem. But again, you have to be willing, though, to open your mouth and offer the critique and say, this is what we looking for and what we need. When people say the Biden White House has done this for black people, I go, true. Hashtag, I'm not satisfied. Mm-hmm. That scene from Malcolm X. Remember when Brother Johnson was beaten, he said, call an ambulance. And the cop goes, okay, you came and got what you wanted.
Right,
and I break up, he's like, no, I'm not satisfied. Here's the deal. I'm never going to be satisfied because you're not supposed to be satisfied in politics. You're supposed to always ask for more. If they say, the Biden people say, we gave y'all last year. That was last year. This is this year. Mm-hmm. And then next year is different. Yes, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed, and I guess, and I will give you credit. You're absolutely right. This is what you did when it came to HBCUs. You're right. But what about this? And what about this? And what about this? That's politics. Everybody listening to me who's black, even if you're a hardcore Democrat, listen to what I'm about to tell you. Everybody does this. Everybody.
That's right.
Gay people do it. Mm-hmm. Bankers do it. Women do it. Latinos do it. Asian Americans do it. Every constituency, this is what they do. In politics, it's about getting all of your stuff, and you keep pushing. But what you don't do is commit political suicide by stepping out of the process, because then you're guaranteed never to be listened to.
You're absolutely 100% right. But like, what is like the only way they're ever going to really move? And I'm never going to discourage anybody from sitting out elections, but the only way they're ever going to really move is if one year no black people show up and they end up losing. But we can't afford to do that. No. So how do you push them?
You push them because, first of all, remember, there are primaries.
Because you said, they need us.
But here's the first thing. Yeah. There are primaries. Mm-hmm. So the question is, who are we supporting in the primary? Okay? You're not just always just accepting whoever runs. Mm-hmm. There are options. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. All these people who were yelling, man, why we got an old guy Biden? I'm sorry. Y'all asses were real silent when Corey was running. When Kamala was running. There were choices. I mean, that's what cracks me up when I hear people complaining about, man, Biden, he's so old. There were other people running. Mm-hmm. Folk chose not to vote for him. A lot of black people, man, we don't care about no Cory Booker. We don't care about no Kamala Harris. Okay.
A lot of black people like Bernie, but then people told us, no, Bernie can't win.
Well, first of all, it's not they told us Bernie can't win. Folks still voted. Folk didn't vote for Senator Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what happened. Again, they didn't vote for Senator Cory Booker. They didn't vote for Senator Kamala Harris. That's what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
It simply comes down to, again, engage. I'm simply saying for us, the reality is, I don't care who you are. If you check out of anything, no one will pay you any attention. You have to be engaged, which means look. Lacey Clay was the congressman for a number of years. His daddy was a congressman in St. Louis. He crushed Cori Bush the first time she ran against him. What happened the second time? She won.
Mm-hmm.
Congressman Jim Clyburn didn't win the first time he ran. He lost. Okay? Here in New York, Charlie Rangel ran against Adam Clayton Powell. He was a legend. Mm-hmm. He beat him. So again, I never understand people go, even some of the CBC members, mad when they get an opponent. You ain't that ain't your seat.
So you're saying somebody should primary Biden in 24?
Oh, what I'm saying is, if you think you big and bad enough to run, knock yourself out. Now, it ain't gonna work. Look, Mayor.
See what you just did?
No. Let me explain why. He's the incumbent.
Mm-hmm.
That's first. 2, he has all the advantages of the incumbency. He controls the entire system. Look at who's running. Who's announced they run against President Biden?
Who would announce?
Who's announced?
Oh, nobody. Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
Was it Marianne Williamson?
Oh, Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
Right, damn, my bad. Yeah, Marianne. Yep. But sometimes it's good just to have the person there to challenge. But sometimes it's good to have the person there just to challenge the status quo. Put some new issues on the table.
That's fine. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, I'm also looking at, again, in that situation, this is the president, it's the incumbency. Mm-hmm. That's different than somebody who's a member of Congress, mm-hmm. or if you're a judge or you're a DA. It's a whole different deal. Mm-hmm. But here's the piece, though. Again, run. You should, if you believe the issues are important, run. So, but again, and guess what? The voters may go with you. Now, do I think she's a shot? No, mm-hmm. I don't. Because I think, bottom line is, he controls the entire apparatus.
But what do you think about his age? What do you think about Biden's age and people saying
they knew his ass was old last time?
Early signs of
they knew his ass was old last.
But you didn't see the early signs of alleged dementia.
First of all, right there, alleged dementia. I ain't look. I got no report. I got none of that. Bottom line is, look, he's there. And let me tell you something. When you got ultimate power, you ain't leaving ultimate power. First of all, Ronald Reagan didn't remember nothing the last 4 years he was president. Okay, he didn't. But the reality is, Biden is the guy. He old, but you voted for an old dude in 2020, and so it's gonna be old person as well. I don't. The reason I'm not sitting there tripping, it's a bunch of old people right now who are United States senators. It's a bunch of old people in the House. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of old people right now. When somebody listen to me right now, it's an old ass person who's your county commissioner, who's your city councilman, mm-hmm. and the other deal is here. I ain't want to sit here and say folks who are older, can't run. And this is why I tell all of my millennial and Gen Z followers: if you vote your numbers, you can change the game. See, again, I keep going back to the same thing. I say to any millennial and Gen Z who whines about anything in politics, vote your numbers. Vote your numbers. Mm-hmm. When you vote your numbers, you change the ball game. Mm-hmm. But if you sitting your ass at home. And people say, oh, yeah, they increased their numbers. Yes, they did increase the numbers in 2022. But I'm saying vote your numbers. Millennials and Gen Zs can change every political office in America if they actually vote their numbers. The same thing I'm saying to black people. You vote 68, 70, 75%, you can sweep elections because we know how other folks are going to vote. That's what it boils down to. You have to vote your numbers. Use your power. If you are sitting home on election day, you're not using your power, and it's going to waste.
Before we get out of here, man, you had a great idea. I don't remember how long ago this was, but I heard you say this out loud. I don't know if you said it publicly yet, about what you would like to see happen with the president and the vice president in terms of black media. I think you said you wanted to put together a black media.
What needs to happen is that they should do, just like Biden met with the main TV anchors, and they mostly all white other than Lester Holt, then they need to do one with Black-owned media. They need to do one with black newspapers, those of us in digital and television, Black-owned media. Needs to be on the record. Now, here's the deal. Vice President, she did one with the HBCU journalism students.
That's cool.
But that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I mean, and I ran about 25 minutes on my show. But it needs to be one with professionals.
That's right.
And where you're absolutely right. They are getting the questions that we ask. Because, look, I've been black journalists who work in mainstream media, they might bring up the debt ceiling. Black people didn't bring up the debt ceiling. That's not the issue we're going to be bringing up, okay? So it needs to be black-owned media. That needs to happen. I've made that perfectly clear. And again, there are folks in the White House who ain't happy because I did, and I really don't care. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's who I am going to advocate for black-owned media. I did it when I ran Chicago Defender, Houston Defender, Dallas Weekly, so when I was at Savoy, Black America Web. It's always going to happen. And so that's what needs to happen. He needs to have that conversation with us. He needs to be doing one-on-one interviews with black-owned media outlets. I'm sorry for them, and this is no disrespect to Fox Soul, but you gonna sit here and call Fox Soul, and you ain't called black-owned? Really? I'm sorry. No. Now, if you want to do that, then you do both. So they haven't done that. But I'm always going to advocate for black-owned media. That ain't never changed in my entire life. I push city council. Look, I've cussed out many a black politician who ignored black-owned media. And I'm talking about way before I was in this position. I did it when I was in Houston. It's a true story. Lee Brown was the mayor of Houston. He went to South Africa. White media killed him. So they came back and they said, I got to call Roland. I forgot it was either the press secretary or the communications or the chief of staff. I can't remember. They said, hey, we want to bring the mayor by. And want him to, sit down. And, he's got a lot of criticism. And I was like, you done? He's like, yeah. I said, fuck Lee Brown. They were like, what? I said, y'all didn't call. I said, I was running the Houston Defender, #1 black newspaper. I said, now y'all didn't call it before you went to South Africa. We got no phone call. We got no preview of the trip or nothing. I said, but white media's kicking your behind. Now you want to call the black paper to bail you out. And I was doing this show called Newsmakers. It was on the channel. It was an NBC affiliate. It was a Sunday morning political show. I said, here's gonna happen. I'm gonna kick y'all ass in the paper this weekend. So I'm gonna kick your ass on the air next week. I said on Sunday. Then I'm gonna kick your ass in the paper. You can remember the next time not to call my ass after the fact. Then I hung up. That actually absolutely happened. Now, people are like, damn, Roland, Lee Brown was an alpha. I don't give a damn if he was an alpha. And yes, I'm a life member. What you're not going to do, you're not going to disrespect black-owned media and come to me to bail your ass out when you in trouble.
That's right.
But you don't call me beforehand. And I'll say that to black celebrities. I'll say it to black folks in business. No. Don't call me after the fact. And then don't come calling me to come on my show. But then you ain't dropping no money off. You advertising everywhere else, but then you don't spend with black-owned media. I'm like, no, that ain't happened. And so I've had some choice words for a few people.
And congrats on the NAACP award.
No, we didn't win. We lost.
I know, but the nomination. I mean,
it was cool.
And the one thing people wonder is like, does Roland ever sit down at events?
Okay.
Or you just wandered the room?
No. See, no, I worked the room. See, that's people don't understand.
Okay.
See, when they go to a commercial break, here's what you got to understand. When you at the Image Awards, most people are literally in one location. So I'm a journalist.
You got him.
So when I get up, like, look, 2 years ago, hey, Issa Rae, she gave me a hug, got makeup all on my white outfit. That's the best way they got cleaners. That's why this year she said, I'm gonna kiss you differently. I want to get makeup on your outfit. And I was like, yo, Issa, I said, hit your text. She said, oh no, that's an old number. Boom, new number. Dude, I'm working.
That's real.
So when I'm booking people, I don't go, no disrespect. I don't deal with publicists. I go right to the source and book them that way. So that's what I do. When I go to a banquet, when they say it's time to eat, that's when I get up and I work the room, and I'm getting phone numbers, I'm getting emails, I'm making connections with people. That's how I work it. So yeah, Kev on stage was behind me. He was like, Roland, if you don't sit your ass down, I said, you don't understand, brother. This is work. I said, real. I ain't here for the awards show. He was like, damn, I ain't thought about it that way. So soon as they go to commercial break, I'm up, boom, boom, boom. Number, email, I go take a seat.
That's what Khaled does.
Straight
up. That's Khaled. Word up.
Doc, that's how I'm gonna work it.
Word.
I will work every single room. And if I go to an event and I have not walked away with somebody's phone number, I wasted my time going to that event.
There you go.
Damn.
That's work, baby.
That's
Well,
real.
Roland Martin, ladies and gentlemen.
Make sure you check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network.
That's right.
And give.
That's right.
Donate. Where they can donate at, Roland?
It's easy. Checking money orders, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196.
You said that too fast. You got to say it a little slower than that.
Hey, I know, because you talk fast, listen fast. Checks and money orders, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. And I got a lot of black people who still send check and money orders. They don't trust nothing else. But Cash App is $RM Unfiltered, PayPal or Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can tell I can do that every single day. So,
See, I can tell. All right.
Every day.
Well, it's Roland Martin, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's the longest interview we did this year, right? So far? Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Hour and 10. It's the Breakfast
Drop
Club.
the knowledge.
Roland Martin.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.